Episode 157. And welcome into the Benches Clear podcast, where we cover the best rivalry in all of sports. I am Jesse Gutierrez, and I represent the side of a team that's still not playing, but only kind of halfway playing now, the San Francisco Giants.
And I'm Dave, recovering from sickness or whatever, but extremely happy because today the Dodgers embark on game one of the NLCS.
Yes, so it's technically like it's half there. The Mets were replacing the Dodgers and Giants in New York. That's why their colors are orange and blue. Little fun fact for you. Just gave that so you can have that for anyone that wants that. So technically we're half there. And what does that mean? Absolutely nothing. These playoffs are shaking out way different than I imagined. I think I'm like 0 for 10 so far. So maybe I'll just predict the Dodgers to win so they can go home.
Yeah, let's not do that because then you're not really going with your heart, so it's not going to really work.
Yeah. I know. I feel like maybe my heart is just waiting in the wings and it's gathering all its energy like a Super Saiyan, like, just with the spirit bomb. And then I can finally use it, all my energy, to destroy it. I guess we should maybe talk about this game 5. This is a snooze fest. Boring. It sucked. I hated it. And it's over. Padre fans already putting on their tinfoil hats. I think I saw something. Huh? Yeah, I saw some. You were interacting with somebody, right? That was saying that MLB called the Padres, told them, "Hey, you guys need to start losing. This ain't it."
Apparently, after Game 3, after the home run by Tatis, they're like, "Hey, you know what, guys? That's it. You're done.
Enough runs for you.
That's enough runs for you guys. I think we're gonna. You guys know the script. You guys got to abide by it, and the rest is history, apparently."
Right. It's kind of really insane. I don't think there's much to cover when it comes to this game 5. I don't know if it's just me from the outside in. Maybe it felt like the Dodgers had like a 10-run lead, even though it was only 2, because the Padres just looked absolutely just lost at the plate. Not even close. No rallies to kind of make you worried a little bit. It was ridiculous. I mean, Yamamoto looked great. What was your takeaway?
I just got to give it up to the bullpen, man. They've 24 innings scoreless streak against the Padres, 24, 25, something like that. That team on the other side is like, I said it before, it's one of the most complete teams left on the field at the time. They had the bullpen, they had the starting pitching, they had a great offense, they had a really hot Tatis, and they just buckled down, man, and shut them down, and that was the big difference. Yamamoto got the chance to redeem himself after the first game, and he really came through. I mean, he matched. It's gotta be something. You're facing your Yu Darvish, who's probably a hero to him. They're both from Japan, both been on the WBC together, and probably a little more incentive there. But he really stepped up. I mean, Yu Darvish pitched amazing too. It's not like he was giving up home runs left and right. I mean, he made 2 mistakes, and they hit it pretty long. So. Yeah. It was a really, really good game. Everything you want from a game 5, but boring because there wasn't many runs. But if you like pitching,
but there wasn't
a great game.
But even there wasn't the big, second and third, 1 run out, and one out, and somebody from the bullpen gets 2 big strikeouts, or there's a big play that it was 2 home runs and then a snooze fest the whole way. If you were to known that there was only 2 runs that the Dodgers were going to score that game, what would you think that ends in a win? Or
no? I thought, honestly, I'm like, okay, if it's only 2 runs, I don't know anything else, we probably lost 4-2, 5-2 or something, but not the case. I mean, just great pitching all around, I think. I mean, obviously.
Right. And it's not that you guys did anything great. Just like Profar said, it's just they were bad. So,
well, I mean,
got lucky.
I said it on the previous episode. I think I'm like, this is going to be a game where the Dodgers have been here before. In the brief history, brief history, not really. Previous history, they've been there before. Game 5s, Game 7s, and they haven't been able to close out series or whatever it is. But the Padres haven't been there really. I don't remember what the Phillies, what the series was at when they lost that one, but I don't think it was like a Game 7 or anything like that. So for them, this was one of the, I think the nerves maybe got to them. They changed the way they were trying to hit the ball. They were trying to go for home runs, which ironically, that's how the Dodgers won it. But you have guys like Kike Hernandez who have been there, and they're just like ready for the moment. They thrive in that environment, and maybe the Padres learn from this. Maybe next year it'll be different for them. Who knows? But at least in this game, I'm like, it'll be the first time they're in this kind of environment where their backs are up against the wall, and they, it's do or die. And you could tell it's a little different. The nerves were there. Fernando Tatis looked a little bit different in most of his at-bats. They were just missing everything.
Right. I thought this was, I honestly thought this, like half this podcast was going to be about Game 5. And then we were going to touch a little bit about, previewing the series. Because obviously with baseball, it's when it happens, it happens. You don't, all the regular season numbers, it's like they almost go out the window. Almost the opposite always happens. But it was such a snooze fest. It's like, I don't know, dude. Like, there's not really much to cover. Both starting pitchers were great, like you said. The only thing I think is just, it was not a lot. I understand the short leash with Yamamoto, especially when there might be some type of injury there. But, and with your bullpen being so locked down, I guess you don't want to risk it. It is Game 5. But at the same time, it's going to have to catch up to him at some point. We're going to get into this in a second, but they got 2.5 starting pitchers for a 7-game series, and they're gonna. The Dodgers' best bet is they're gonna have to stay hot and try to just put them away early, because if it goes towards 7 or towards the end, I'm not sure that they're gonna be able to make it.
It's been done before though. The Phillies had Wheeler and Nola, and then the Astros had what was it, Cole and Verlander. It's been done before. It's not like out of the realm of possibility that it could be done again. But you do worry that if you lean too much on the bullpen, not only does the other team see them a lot more in a 7-game series and gets used to them, but just the usage. So it is worrisome. So this series it's going to be all about offense. If they can help the bullpen, then it relieve the stress. Then that's all it is.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe enough of this Game 5. It's like I said, snooze fest. I think it's we're more excited for what's about to happen, and maybe we just get into the next series.
Let's do it.
And we're gonna do that with a very special guest. We're gonna welcome him in right now, and our good friend from the Till Mets Do Us Part podcast, John Saponaro. My guy, how we doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm looking forward to the series. Looking forward to talking some baseball with you too.
Are the nerves starting to set in right now, or not yet?
I haven't had time to even be nervous, to be honest. Like, I don't play that game of, I'd rather face this team or that team. Like, I don't think the Mets are historically good enough, nor do I think they were good enough this year to start cherry picking opponents. Like, I don't subscribe to that. But, I just haven't. This year's been such a roller coaster emotionally for the Mets, for Mets fans, that like I don't want to say house is money, but like look, nobody expected them to be where they're at, and now nobody's expecting them to beat the Dodgers, and so I'm just happy. I live in LA. I'm going to the game tomorrow, so from a picking opponents perspective, that's the only thing I was happy about. I was like, I don't want to drive to San Diego. I'd rather just drive 30 minutes to Dodger Stadium and be good. So there's not really a lot of nerves. I don't know what it is. I'm also super jet lagged. That could be part of it, but
that's probably it too. Especially in the postseason when it doesn't matter who you face. Anybody can beat anybody at any given time. So it doesn't matter when you're like, I want to face this team. It's like, no, man, it doesn't matter because that team could still beat you regardless. So
exactly. I was just talking. I just talked some trash to one of the. I think he's a guy who works in the radio in Philadelphia, and just the post that he put out on Twitter was. I should be getting ready to watch Zach Wheeler pitch. And I'm like, what is this should business? Like, that's so frustrating to me. Like, should you be upset and disappointed? Can you be frustrated? All of those things, sure. But like you said, any given Sunday, you know, in the playoffs, anybody can beat anybody. That's first and foremost. Second of all, the Mets outplayed the Phillies in that series, and the Mets have been better than the Phillies for 4 months. So don't give me I should be ready. Like, come on, man. Like, that's it's so typical Philadelphia sports nonsense of like, we deserve this, nobody else deserves this because we're so blue collar. Like, shut up.
I enjoy that rivalry from the outside, because I see how it is with us, with everybody else. When I see you guys going at it, I'm like, I like that. Let them go at it.
Yeah.
You feel like more like spectators, other than you have to think about what witty to say and not look stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always nice to watch like somebody else's drama from afar, right? Like that's just how it is. Like somebody said to me, I'm also a Jets fan, and somebody was talking to me about you know, one of the Jets games a couple weeks ago against Tennessee, and you know, the Jets barely eked that game out, and I'm watching it, and somebody who's not a fan is like watching it alongside me, and they're like, at least it was a good game. And I'm like, dude, I don't want, when my teams are involved, I don't want good games. I want to win by 200 runs. Like, I don't care about good games. Like, no, but from afar, sure. Like if you guys were playing each other, I'd be like, oh man, I hope this is, you know, 1-1 in the bottom of the ninth. But like, neither one of you wants that. Come on.
Yeah, right. Good games are great afterwards. Like, you know, when you're down 5 runs and you're like shit, and then they come back in the ninth. Yeah, I love those games after it's already happened. But I don't wish that. I'm not having fun during the time.
No. I mean, even the run the Mets have been on, with the way they had to come back and beat Atlanta, the way they had to come back and beat Milwaukee, the way that they, you know, came back in a couple of those games against Philadelphia. Like, looking back, yeah, dramatic, super fun. But in the moment, I'm sitting there like, just beside myself. Like, I was watching some of those games from Australia at 7:00 in the morning with the kinds of emotions that you should not be feeling before you have breakfast. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like,
yeah, it's like I was just telling Jesse. He's like, "Oh, Game 5 was so boring. Nothing happened." I'm like, "To you?" So I'm like, I was at the edge of my seat the whole time. I couldn't even, you know, so nervous.
They had like 2 big hitters the whole game.
Yeah,
it was so whack. I hated it. It was not fun. I really wanted them to, like, I get it, like in like I said the last episode, like, it's fun. We get to hang out, we get to talk ball with different people when the Dodgers move on, because obviously the Giants aren't doing shit right now. But so it's fun, but at the same time, I want you to lose in the worst way possible as well. So it's, you know, yings and yangs, pros and cons.
But how perfect is this though? Like, the two sides that combine to make the team in the middle. Right. Like,
that's true.
Pretty cool.
That's true. I mean, you know, go ahead, Jesse.
No, you all you.
Oh, I was gonna say, you know, it's funny because, you know, I live in LA now, but I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised in Brooklyn. My grandmother grew up like literally in the shadow of Ebbets Field, so like they were Dodger fans through and through and through and through. And you know, like everybody else, Dodgers leave, Giants leave. You can't follow baseball in the 50s on the other coast. It's impossible. My grandfather tried, like, you know, picking up the newspaper the next day, trying to figure out like what happened to his favorite team. And he's like, it was impossible. So he becomes a Mets fan. And just, I remember the thing that he's always said to me when I was growing up was, he was like, look, when I was a kid, there were 3 teams in New York. You loved one and you hated the other 2. So it didn't matter that it was, you know, National League or American League. He was like, if the Giants stayed and just the Dodgers left, I wouldn't have been able to root for the Giants. You know, they both leave. I could never root for the Yankees. And, you know, so, and here we are, all 3 of us now having this conversation. So.
And actually the last time I went to a playoff game that I had nothing to do with was the Dodgers and Mets in 2015, and that's when the Mets clinched. So,
hey, that still lives in my memory. Why Greinke did not cover third, man. I hated it
because he's too busy worrying about his cats and, you know, people not washing their hands and shit.
All that stuff. Yeah,
weirdo.
I thought we were going to have that moment with Edwin Diaz this year when Edwin Diaz didn't cover first on that play that Alonso made like a sprawling play down the first base line. And Edwin Diaz is like, Cool.
Like, looking at it.
Cover the bag, dude. Please, for the love of God.
Let's get into these. I guess all the aspects of the series coming up. I mean, we could start with the starting pitching. Dave, your lack thereof starting pitching, I guess. Does that make you nervous that the bullpen's going to be pitching TBD? I mean, technically TBD is like your best pitcher. You guys always win with TBD pitches, but I mean, how many times can he go?
Hey, you're going to go until the arm falls off, man. It's the playoffs. You're going to ride it until you can't anymore. So, it's been the best part of our game so far, the bullpen. So hopefully it continues because, as good as the offense is, great pitching will always stop great offense. So if our pitching continues, the bullpen continues to be great, we have a great shot.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting to be in the Mets perspective and have the advantage in the starting pitching, because the starting pitching for the Mets has been really good all season, especially good since the second half. But, it's not household names with a lot of these guys or their, reclamation projects, names
Right.
from 5 years ago, Luis Severino and Sean Manaea and the likes of that. So it's interesting to be in a series now where the Mets have the starting pitching advantage because they have not all season. So, you guys definitely have the advantage in the bullpen. I think the Mets lineup top to bottom is probably a little deeper, but obviously the star power for the Dodgers is, astronomical compared to the Mets. Just, the top 3-4 guys is just like, come on, you guys got us there.
And I think that's what it comes down to too. I said it in the last series. It's not about the Otanis, the Mookies, or the Freddies. It's going to be about the Gavin Lux, the guys at the bottom. If they can contribute, if they can show up when it matters, then we're golden, because that just makes the lineup so much deeper. But if it's all left up to the stars, gets a little dicey.
I mean, that's how the Mets beat the Phillies, essentially. I mean, Castellanos and Harper and a couple of hits mixed in there from Schwarber were the only guys who did anything. I know Trey Turner's a star or whatever, but he had a terrible series. Real Muto's not the same player that he was, a few years ago. Still very good, but, not great, not top catcher in the league anymore. But, a couple of their guys did great, whereas the Mets got contributions from everybody up and down the lineup, and that was really the difference. It really shut them down. So.
Yep. And I don't want to demean the season or anything, but I do feel like they're on that kind of D-backs kind of run where nobody saw it coming. Mm-hmm. But then again, it's because they started the season so slow, but they're not a bad team. They have a really good team. So everybody trying to discredit them and saying, oh, well, they're the underdogs. I don't see it that way. I think it's more level than people think it is. But,
Yeah, technically they're a $300 million payroll team, but at the same time, they're also paying a lot of guys to be on other teams. So, and that their whole narrative is we're competing for, what was it, 25 or 26?
Mm-hmm.
They were, I mean, everyone before the season started, it was, where's Pete Alonso going at the trade deadline? Oh, what are they going to get from JD Martinez? Like, when they're picking up JD Martinez, I was thinking, oh, they're just getting him a 1-year deal to try to, flip him at the deadline to see what they can get. But
and the scary thing is that this year is probably the weakest they'll be, both teams. Next year, you get a bunch of players back from the IL for the Dodgers. The Mets they'll be in the bidding for Soto, and if they get him, they'll be that much better. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of crazy that with all the injuries, with everything that's gone on this season for both teams, they are where they're at, and they could be there again next year, stronger.
I just want to go on record. Like I've said it on my show since the beginning of the season. Every year at the top of the year, we make our bold predictions, just a couple things we kind of pick out here and there. And then we make our predictions for record and where the team is going to go. And I had the Mets in March, 88 wins and the third wild card. And they got 89 wins in the third wild card. So I pat myself on the back a little bit there. I did not think they were going to be sellers like astronomically. Obviously, if you predict 88 wins, you don't think they're going to be selling off pieces. I never thought Pete Alonso was going anywhere. When you talk about like 1-year deal guys, that's always a possibility. Even if a team is good, you might add to subtract and subtract to add. So like, JD Martinez and Harrison Bader and Severino and some of these guys, you're like, yeah, I could see them maybe moving that guy and bringing in somebody else and kind of just reconfiguring the team. But I never thought any of the mainstays, even with Pete not having a contract extension, I never thought he was going anywhere. And I don't think he should go anywhere. That's always been my take on this. I think a lot of people sometimes Mets fans forget like what they have and they don't realize what they have. And, people are saying that he's on the decline. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't see it, but that's just
I think
me.
that's just how New York is. The fans are sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a time where they didn't want Lindor. They wanted to trade to Lindor too. And I'm like,
Yep.
Really?
It's insane.
Yeah.
Me and I got to shout out my co-host Matt Ibi Ibanez, but me and him have been just like, when we hear all the hate that Lindor gets, even the hate that Edwin Diaz got, we're like, what are you guys doing? Like, where is this coming from? Especially Lindor, because Lindor is a star. Lindor was a star before he got to the Mets. He's been a star since he got to the Mets. He had one bad year, his first year, changing leagues, changing organizations, moving cities, the whole thing that goes into it, the big contract, having to live up to that. And yeah, he was underwhelming for him. But since then, he's been great. The fact that he hasn't made an all-star team is an absolute joke. The fact that he hasn't won a Gold Glove is an absolute joke. But even if you look at somebody who was up and down the way Diaz has been since he came to the Mets, Diaz deserves all the credit in the world, because I've seen this movie before as a Mets fan, where a guy comes here, underwhelms, and then maybe bounces back a bit the way that he did 2 years ago. And that guy is the first guy to bolt out the door. And he's like, you know what? I gave you guys a good season, a great season. It's time for me to go make my money. You treated me like shit. I'm out of here. And he signed with the Mets before the World Series was over. Like, he was like, no, I want to be here. This is where I would like to play. This is where I want to prove myself. Like, so the hate that he gets, the hate that Lindor gets, I hope the Lindor hate is dead forever after the year that he had. And the hate that Alonso gets, honestly, is quite frankly, it's maddening. It's so dumb.
Yeah.
Do you have a problem with, I guess not a really problem. Are you worried about the fact the Mets are like the hot team and now they just had 4 days off?
That's a good question. No, I don't know what to make of long layoffs in baseball, like with this new playoff format and stuff like that. I didn't really like it at first, although I do like the way that they've reshaped the playoffs. Like, I don't think 162 game season should come down to one game. I think the one game wild card, that thing that they did for a couple of years, that was insane. So I like the addition of best 2 out of 3. I think most baseball is played in a 2 out of 3 format, right? Like, you start the season and it's like, what's your goal? Win series, win more series than you lose. If you split 2-game series and split 4-game series, and then you just win most of the 3-game series, you're going to make the playoffs. Like, that's kind of how it works. So I think the 2 out of 3 format makes sense. I know that some teams complain about having that long layoff. As a Mets fan, I have not been in that position yet. The Mets have not had a playoff season yet where they've been the team that has the bye. But, here you've got 3 of the 4 teams that had a bye making it to the NLCS and the ALCS. So, I don't know if it's this huge deal. I'm not sure what to make of it. For the Mets on this run right now, you'd like to say, wow, they should never stop playing, right? Like, they're so hot, they should just keep playing, and having 3 or 4 days off might kind of slow them down and cool them off a little bit. But also, their team was taxed, man. I mean, we played like 11 games in 10 days. Edwin Diaz, like from the Braves series into the playoffs, he had thrown like 137 pitches in 6 days. It's the only time in his life he has ever thrown that many pitches. So, like, I think these guys needed a little bit of a break, especially the bullpen arms. So, I'm not super worried about it. But, yeah, there is the old adage of, like, a team just getting cold because it's been 4 days.
I don't know. I think some teams are more like the Dodgers. They weren't used to it the first time around. This time they're like, well, now we know what to expect and not to lack focus or anything. And they came through. The Phillies, who wanted that rest, I don't think they handled it very well. They either the focus wasn't there or whatever, and you could see it in the play. They just weren't the same team. But with the Mets, I feel like with Lindor nursing a bad back and all these, all the games that they played in a row, it's going to help them. And that's what my fear is. Like, yeah, maybe they'll be a little rusty to begin the game, but it'll help them in the long run. So that's what I'm a little scared of too on the opposite side.
Yeah, I could see that. I don't know, man. Like, there's that momentum. There's like the science of momentum. It's like the science of clutch. There's so many things that are like, just, it's unquantifiable. But if you're a baseball fan, you just kind of know it, right? You like, well, this guy's clutch. You're like, well, the numbers say he's not clutch. It's like, I don't know. I just watch him and I know he's clutch. And then it's just like with the situation like this, of like, you don't want to take time off. You're like, yeah, because I've seen every time teams have long layoffs, they come out and they're not the same team. But I don't know that any of that stuff actually matters. I think it's just an old school thought process that us as baseball fans, we're just conditioned to think like
superstition.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because I like
right.
to say that I'm not superstitious, but then at the same time, like there's some things that I'm like, I don't really want to change that.
Yeah.
Like,
The old, the little stitch, not superstitious, just a little stitious.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you think that there's any must-win games? I guess there's a question for either of you guys. Like, do you guys like at the moment the Mets starting pitching is more complete, but like the Tigers, it's like you got to win the school game. Like, is there a game for either of you guys where it's like if we don't win this game, it's gonna mess up the whole series for us?
For me, I think the Mets need to get one of the two games here in LA. I think that's just kind of the way, a lot of 7-game series work, even 5-game series. Like the importance of the Mets in the last round beating the Phillies in a game where Wheeler pitched the best game of his life. That's something, that matters. I think that must win is like the most overused phrase in sports. You'll be watching football and they're like, this is a must-win game. You're like, it's September 19th. That doesn't exist. But when you get to the playoffs, obviously that whole narrative changes because you want to eliminate the other team as quickly as possible. If I could win 4 in a row, I'm taking it. Every game is a must-win. But from with respect to the question that you asked, I think as a Mets fan, like I just want to get one of these 2 games in LA before you go back to Citi Field. The opportunity to not have to come back to LA to potentially advance is, I think, what any road team wants, when you're playing in the playoffs.
I think I'm going to go with the opposite of that because only from this postseason, how resilient the Mets have been and the Dodgers. The Mets, that one game that they eventually lost in Philadelphia, they were down to their last striker out and Vientos hit a bomb that was near his head. And it's like, that team never gave up. And they knew like, yeah, Castellanos and Harper are going to beat us. We'll just wash it. Let's move on and go win it at home. So I don't think for either team, they're scared of going into an environment and being like, oh, we're going to lose because, it's hostile. I think they both can do it. So I don't think there's must win games, but, only because I think both teams can go into that sort of environment and still handle it and win a game.
Yeah. You also have the similarities of the ballparks, right? Like, both ballparks play a little bit more pitcher friendly than say like the Mets going down to Citizens Bank, which is a bandbox. Both teams, Mets, Dodgers, have guys with tremendous power, right? Like, you're not worried about cheapy home runs from Ohtani and Alonso, right? Like they're going to get theirs. Certain players are going to hit their home runs and drive in their runs. So I think there is something to that too, of just the resiliency too. I don't think either team, the Dodgers are tried and true. A lot of these guys have been there, done that time and time again. And the ones who haven't, like Ohtani, first go around in the playoffs, like he's great. I mean, he might be the best baseball player we've ever seen. So, I don't think he's going to shrink on a big stage. A lot of these Mets, while they haven't won, they know what it feels like to lose. 2 years ago, they were, one of, if not the best team in baseball. You can split hairs and say, was it the Dodgers? Was it the Yankees? Whoever. But, and they went into that and they got kind of, their asses handed to them by the Padres. So, Lindor remembers what that feels like. Nimmo, Alonso, like a lot of these guys know what it takes to lose. And so I think that they're not going to, I don't think they're intimidated by this moment at all. And then you do have some guys like, Severino's done a lot of winning, and obviously JD Martinez, I'm addicted to the playoffs and all that stuff. He has not had a great year by his standards, but he's been an important part of this team just from a leadership standpoint.
What do you guys think is going to be? I know obviously there's like you were saying earlier, the Otanis and the Alonsos. Who's maybe the guy or I guess it could be anything. The strategies that maybe people aren't talking about that's going to help your team get to the World Series.
It's a good
well,
one.
I mean, the guy that scares me the most in their lineup that I think we should shut down is Vientos. That kid, I mean, he's just showing out, and I don't know if he's the heart and soul of the team. I don't follow them that much, but he's leading
Grimace
them, man.
is the heart and soul of the team, aren't they?
Damn right. Damn right.
So,
It's Grimace, baby.
I mean, Lindor's going to get his, like we said. Alonso's going to hit his, even Martinez. But if we can stop the Vientos and all the other guys of the world, and just for us, also the Kike Hernandez of the world, all those guys, if you can shut them down, then I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's funny you say Kike Hernandez because he's the guy who, I was watching the game the other day and I didn't know this, but it also doesn't surprise me. Like, he has a higher postseason home run rate than Manny Ramirez, which is insane when you think about it. Like, as clutch as Manny Ramirez was for all those years, especially in Boston, you look at what Kike has been able to do. Like, he's just a different kind of player. He's a big time player, especially wearing Dodger blue, especially in the playoffs. So, I think there's some of these unsung guys. We're getting to the point now where Vientos isn't necessarily unsung, but because he's 24 years old and he's essentially a rookie, he's not a rookie by MLB standards anymore. Like, he can't get the award, but he's essentially a rookie playing his first full season.
Right.
If you follow the Mets, you're kind of used to it by now, but for the rest of the league, I could understand why he's a guy that's like, okay, he's not in the top tier of guys, but he's a guy that we have to look out for. And then beyond that, it's really like kind of part-time players that have been really good. The energy that Jesse Winker brings, the energy and the defense that Tyrone Taylor brings. Even Francisco Alvarez, who I think, he has potential to be the best catcher in baseball. Like, that's how good he can be. And he's had a down sophomore season, but he's another guy, like, he's got all the power in the world. And if he gets hot, forget it. So I would say it's the guys like Winker, it's the guys like Tyrone Taylor, it's the guys like Francisco Alvarez, who, while I think he could be a star, he's certainly a better pedigree of player than the other two guys I mentioned. He hasn't had a good year, so he's kind of flown under the radar. I think it is. It's those sneaky guys on both teams.
Yeah, you can't relax after you're done with like the Otanis, the Muncies, the Smith, and you're like, okay, now I got a break here with Hernandez and Edman or whoever it is. You're like, you can't relax. If you do, you're going to be in trouble. Same with the Mets. You can't relax. If Winker gets one, he's going to hit it to the upper deck. So you just can't. You got to take them all seriously, same level.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like both teams are that deep, and it was kind of weird. We were talking, in the last series, it took a while for Kike to really get a lot of playing time, which in my mind, the Kike has been killing the Giants, especially Madison Bumgarner, for so long that that was very shocking, and his postseason pedigree, speaks for itself. But yeah, I mean, there's always that big home run or that big hit or that big inning from, people don't know except for the team that they're playing for. So, yeah. Who knows?
Well, it's funny because Dave, I think you said it earlier, like, good pitching always beats good hitting. Did you say that earlier? I think so. And that's true. And that's always been true. But the one thing that we've noticed, especially in the last, maybe 10 years of postseason baseball, is that power changes the game completely, because the odds of you getting 4 and 5 hits in an inning off of prime Clayton Kershaw or prime Jacob deGrom, pick your person, Zach Wheeler this year, it's just not going to happen. So your team can win. That's why it frustrates me when people say oh, guys are trying to hit home runs. No, it's just that power changes the game. That's how you upset the balance of good pitching beating good hitting, is hitting a 3-run home run and winning that game 3-1. That's how you win in the postseason.
Exactly. Right. Yep.
3-run home runs. I know a little bit about that for moving on the playoffs against the Mets in 2014. Well, no, that's been 16, actually.
16.
Yeah, that's the last time we were there, so I can't really say too much, but I'll take where I can get it. Huh?
Was that Connor Gillespie?
Connor Gillespie, for Giants legend, the prospect that never was.
It's baked in here. This is you always remember the ones that get you.
Yeah, hey, John, let me ask you, if it goes all your way and the Dodgers lose, who would you rather face, the Yankees or the Guardians? Just for the juiciness of the storyline, or does it matter at all who you face?
Yeah, you say you don't go there, but you know what? You're on a different podcast today. Today, let's go there.
So I think there's a lot of intrigue. I actually put out a video post about this. I think there's a lot of intrigue on how the Mets have had to get here. And I used a couple of different analogies. I don't know if either one of you guys are wrestling fans or ever have been wrestling fans.
I was when I was young.
Okay. So the first analogy I use is that, like, so in order for the Mets to even get to where they're at, they had to beat the Braves in Atlanta in the final 2 games of the season. The Mets have never beaten the Braves in Atlanta. Historically, it's been a house of horrors, and it doesn't matter which stadium they play in. Going back to the 90s, the Mets have a horrible record in Atlanta. So they had to do that to even get to the playoffs. Then they had to beat Milwaukee, who not only had their number this season, but Milwaukee is the team that David Stearns built. It's a team that David Stearns' fingerprints are still all over, and it's the owner that prevented David Stearns from coming to the Mets for basically 2 seasons, when all Steve Cohen wanted to do was hire David Stearns, and all David Stearns wanted to do was come back to the organization that he started with and the team that he rooted for growing up in the city that he grew up in, and he could not come back here until he was, through his contract and everything like that and got past the 1 year of non-compete and all that nonsense. So they had to go through that. Then they have to go through the Phillies. And the Mets and the Phillies have never really been good at the same time. They're both franchises that historically are, worse than they are good, with the exception of 2007 and 2008. And then here you have the Phillies in 2007, especially, 7 games back with 17 to play, coming up, catching the Mets, knocking the Mets out of a playoff spot. And they damn near do the same thing in 2008. So they have to do that. They have to exercise those demons. So I put out the video after that series before the Dodgers won. And I was like, well, when you look at it, you've got intrigue with the Padres because the Padres eliminated us in 2022 with all the issues there and everything that went on with the sweaty ear from Joe Musgrove and all that stuff. And then you've got, with the Dodgers, you just have it's a classic rivalry. You got the 1988 series. You've got Chase Utley breaking Ruben Tejada's leg and all that stuff, going back to 2015. So there's plenty of stories there. And I think when you get to now the potential opponents in a World Series, well, you have the Guardians, Lindor's old team that he made it to Game 7 of the World Series with, and fell just a little bit short to the Cubs during their crazy run. And then, of course, you have the Yankees. They are, and this is where the wrestling analogy comes in. They're the Rock. They're the final boss. And you have the opportunity, if you're the Mets, to take care of all family business in one season. The whole thing has always been LOL Mets, same old Mets. The Mets can't get out of their way.
Right.
The Mets are no different. Doesn't matter who owns the team. Doesn't matter who runs the team. Doesn't matter who's on the team. Well, so far they've slayed a lot of dragons. So if you could ever beat this Dodgers team and you can go and you can play the Yankees and you can beat the Yankees, those narratives are dead. I don't want to hear LOL Mets ever again. I don't want to hear same old Mets ever again. If you have to beat the Braves, the Phillies, the Brewers, the Dodgers, and the Yankees to win a World Series, that stuff is dead forever.
Yeah.
Until the next thing happens, then everyone's going to bring it up. Like there's just no way getting away from it.
So what have you done for me lately kind of sport. But yeah.
It is. I mean, they all are. But I do think the Mets have earned a lot of that. Like I said, I'm a Mets and a Jets fan. Those are the only 2 teams I care about. And they have both done a lot to earn the shit talking that they get thrown their way by other teams' fan bases, by national media. Like, I understand why they're not respected, but it's to a level now that is just kind of like they just find ways to insert it into the narrative, right? Like the Mets were 3 months ago, 2 months ago, a month ago, the Mets were not good enough to even be in this position. And now that the Mets have fought back and got to this position, now they're a $300 million payroll team, even though like $120 million of that is on another team or not playing at all. So it's like, well, which one is it? Are they a super team or are they not good enough to be here? Like, but that's what they do. That's how they always get the Mets. That's how they always, you know what I mean? So that's the frustrating part. And but again, you have to win to beat that, right? Like the Dodgers have done a lot of winning. The Giants have, I mean, I know not necessarily recently for your liking, but I mean, they won 3 World Series every other year. Like, that's a ton of winning. So you're going to defeat that narrative. The Yankees, of course. So the Mets are in a position now where they can defeat the narrative. So, I don't care who they play, but it would be something if they could beat the Dodgers and then they could beat the Yankees and they can put all that shit to bed.
True. Yeah.
I'm really hoping for that to happen. So before I think I got two more, right? I mean, I think we have to bring up the elephant in the room, don't we? All out war for NL MVP.
Yeah.
Is it an all out war? Because when you look at the numbers, come on.
Where do you stand?
Ohtani's the MVP.
Okay.
Ohtani's the
All
MVP.
right.
Here. Okay.
I was hoping give me some ammo because I
know.
At the beginning of the season, I was literally like, Ohtani's a DH. There's literally zero chance that he's going to be MVP. He has to be so far ahead of everybody else, and then he just ended up being really far.
And then he was. Look, I do think there's a point in the conversation in August where Lindor started to make it interesting. Right. And if Lindor, now I don't know if Lindor was ever going to win it, nor should he win it. But I do think he was making it interesting when you look at, a DH versus a guy who plays Gold Glove shortstop, the most premium position, and brings to the table what Lindor brings. But I think all of that ended when Lindor got hurt and missed 10 games. And right when Lindor got hurt, Ohtani went 6 for 6 with 3 home runs and 10 RBIs or whatever the hell it was in that game in Miami. And it was just like, guys, that's it. It's over. I love Lindor. I'm so happy Lindor is a Met, but he's not the MVP. It's Ohtani.
No, I think you're right. It was starting to there was a conversation to be had at the time. Right. And then as soon as he got that injury, I'm like, oh, that might end it right there because he's going to miss maybe a couple of games or whatever it is. And Ohtani just went off. So I'm like, I think that might have just ended the conversation.
If Ohtani had the season that Ozuna had, I think Lindor's the MVP. Like Ozuna had a really good season. He had an excellent season. But if your only contributions are as a DH, then I don't think that's good enough to overtake Lindor. But I mean, when you go 50-50 and all this, it's like, it's impossible. How are you beating that? Like, it's not, it's insane. I don't care. Like, I don't care that they made stealing bases easier. I don't it doesn't matter. Like you got to go do it. Then if they made it so much easier, how come every team doesn't have a guy who stole 50 bases? How come every player isn't stealing 25? Like, so the narrative that haters want to throw down on there, it's just like, okay, guys, he still had to go do it. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's kind of funny, like when you bring up the narrative around the Mets and how it seemed like the Mets were set up to have another one of those seasons when you got a veteran infielder who's coming out with a song and performs it at the stadium. It's like, it seems like the setup was there for it to all come crashing down and they'd be like, oh, here comes the Mets again. But then it just went the opposite. His song is number 1 in certain countries and and then right after that they just started winning. So maybe that's what killed. Honestly, oh my God, might maybe have killed the curse more than winning.
I listen, this has been it's been a weird season. I don't know how to quantify any of this stuff. I don't know if you can, but I also think it's weird that I don't care if other fan bases do it because we all do it, right? It's with regards to poking fun at the Mets for finding all these rally cries. But I don't like it when media pokes fun at it, especially when media in New York is poking fun at it. And I don't put a lot of stock. It's sad. I used to listen to sports talk radio all the time when I was a kid growing up. And it's probably why I have a podcast, might be why you guys have a podcast, right? It's all part of it. But now it's largely unlistenable in New York because it's all clickbait. It's all hot takes. And you got people who are supposedly Mets fans going, I'm tired of Grimace. I'm tired of this. How come the players on the field aren't getting credit? And it's like, dude, they're getting credit. Stop it. Also, you are part of the reason why the players on the field don't get credit because you spent the first 2.5 months dragging Francisco Lindor. And now he's the best player. You got people there's a guy on sports talk radio in New York that said he wouldn't be satisfied if Anthony Volpe, Yankees shortstop, had Lindor's Mets career. That's not good enough. And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? He's the best shortstop in franchise history. He's one of a handful of shortstops to have 200 something home run. Stop it. Yeah. Stop. What are you doing? People mad that they traded Andres Jimenez for Lindor. You're part of the narrative that why the players don't get credit. So anyway, I say that to say all these crazy things, whether it was OMG, Grimace, the Hawk Tua girl throwing out the first pitch. The Mets got hot during June, when the last couple of years they've always had like the June swoon, and this year it was like they were the best team in June, and that's Pride Month, so everybody was like calling them the gay Mets. Like there was so much stuff, and it was just like
Whatever
it's all great.
Works.
I love, dude. It's baseball. It's a long season. It's a superstitious sport. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's songs, if it's voodoo, if it's black magic. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? Like,
yeah. As long as the players lean into it and it brings them together, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what the outside thinks of it, and they leaned into it. They all loved it. They all loved the grimace, the oh my god, and look where they're at because of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it makes everything funner. I mean, things were way better in San Francisco, and everyone was wearing panda hats and Let Timmy Smoke shirts. Like now, all that's gone, and we're at home and talking about Farhan all day. So
you found a way to bring the Giants into this, dude. Like keep them out of this, man. They're not.
I gotta poke it every once in a while. I just gotta poke my nose and I'll get out. I'm just going to give a double dutch. Let me get in and let me get out.
It's true though. You're right, because like it's like going back to the Red Sox that beat the Yankees, right? They were the idiots. They were the anti-Yankees. Yankees don't have facial hair. Everybody on the Red Sox that year looked like Captain Caveman. Like these dudes, Johnny Damon with his hair down to here, Kevin Millar, they got the beards. Like that's like you need that sometimes. Like teams need to be fun. Baseball is a game. It's meant to be fun. Whatever guys buy into, and I don't love the. I don't want to just sit here and like dump on the Yankees, but like it's too corporate. It's too like when you have these.
We'll do it. Fuck the Yankees. All right.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
Fine. Fine. Yeah, I don't like them. But when you have these mandates of like, you've got to win, and like people are like, oh, are the Yankees really like, is it good enough to make the playoffs every year? Like, yes, but that's the ultimate. Like, you need to make the playoffs every year. You can't win the World Series if you don't make the playoffs. Like, I want to make the playoffs every year. Now, I understand once you start doing that, yes, the expectations change. And I understand why the Yankee fans are upset, especially younger ones, because all they know is winning. But, like, dude, they haven't missed the play. They haven't had a losing season in, like, 35 years or something like that. That is insane. They've missed the playoffs, I think, twice or three times in that span. Like, we could all be so lucky to watch a team that does that. Like, but they're like, oh, it's not good enough because we're the Yankees and we're like fix their tie and shave their face. Like, that's bullshit, man. Give me Grimace all day.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny that they got Chisholm, and he's kind of breaking the mold because he's not a Yankee. Like he does not act like a Yankee at all. And I think that's what's helping them too, keep them loose a little bit, because everybody else is so uptight.
I agree. I think you need guys like that. You can't have one kind of player on a baseball team. You need to have these guys who are, guys who are cornballs, guys who are, super aggressive and angry. You got to have guys who go about business as usual and, and kind of just take baseball as a job and take it seriously so they can lead by example silently, the Carlos Beltrans of the world, guys like that. But you need to have a mix. Like, that's how you do it. Like, when you look at, like, again, the Mets didn't win, the World Series with any of these guys, but, you look at DeGrom. DeGrom was just like, I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to do what I do. That's it. And then you've got Matt Harvey, who was the opposite. He loved being this rock star. He was a real bulldog on the mound, but it was like nobody leaned into the Dark Knight persona more than Harvey. He never talked about it, but he loved it. And then you got guys who were like, a little bit goofy, or like, Syndergaard was kind of like, kind of in between the two. Yeah, he just kind of played this like, but then I'm going to throw 100-mile-an-hour gas at you. Like, you need these different mentalities in a rotation, in a lineup. That's why, like nobody hated Jesse Winker more than Mets fans until Jesse Winker got on the team. Right. And now it's like, oh, this guy's great, because he brings a different kind of energy that Mets fans haven't seen. Because if anything you could say about the Mets over the last couple of years, they've kind of been too nice. The Mets have two players on their team that are known for like being Mr. Smile. You got Brandon Nimmo and Francisco Lindor, two guys that are like, oh, they're the nicest guys in the sport. And that's great. They do both seem like genuine guys. Like, Francisco Lindor seems like the nicest man in the world. Great family guy, like everything about him. Great in the community. He seems terrific. But sometimes you need guys with a little bit of swagger and edge and feistiness and fire and all that other stuff. Like, you need that. You just do.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt when the Jack Flaherty thing, like, hey man, I need that passion. I don't care if we're losing. That's gonna wake them up. Like let
Mhm.
let him talk his crap. Some of the guys are gonna back him up, and it's gonna fire him up. Same thing with Winker. Let him do his thing. You hate him from the outside because he's not on your team, but in that clubhouse, I bet you they love that guy. So you just let them do their thing.
Of course.
Yeah. I think before we wrap this up, I think we got to get your guy. How you think this is going to end? So how many games and who's taking it? I feel like we know the answer to one of those questions, but you got to say it at least.
We'll let our guest be the first one to say
Okay.
his prediction.
Okay, so this is tough when you get to the playoffs, right? Because I like we're all fans, obviously, but we have these platforms, and so we try to be as objective as possible, right? Like, what I also have a Jets show that I do, and like I've picked against the Jets before. We do weekly picks, and like you try to be as heart versus your head, right? But now at this point in the run, this point in the playoffs, like I can't pick against the Mets. I just can't.
Right.
Like that's insane. Now look. I'd rather be happy than right if I were to pick against them. But like, I also just don't have a good reason to pick against them. The Mets haven't given me a lot of reasons to doubt their ability to win this series, despite the fact that on paper, the Dodgers are the better team. So going with that, I'm going to say it's a good series and Mets in 6.
We're right on the same amount of games because I think this is going to be a long series. And both teams are resilient. I think there's going to be blow for blow.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think the Dodgers win it in 6 too. I think they find a way to win it in 6 games. And it wouldn't surprise me if it goes the other way in an exact amount of games, but I got to go with my team. I can't not back them. So yeah. Dodgers in 6.
It's too hard, right, Dave? Like honestly, like this time of year, like you like what's the incentive, or even Jesse for you as like a outside observer for this conversation, like as far as you don't have a dog in the fight, but like there is no incentive for picking the other team. Like at this point, like you're one series away from the World Series. I'm not going to pick the Dodgers. Like,
right,
exactly. It's how I told them in versus the Padres. I'm like, dude, they're one of the most complete teams in the field. And it wouldn't surprise me if they beat them, but I can't go against my Dodgers.
Yeah,
I'm going to take them in 5. I'm like, I can't do it. Even if they lose, I'm going to go down with the ship. So
exactly,
you just can't do it this time of year. Yeah.
And like I always say, I mean, my second favorite team is in this series because my second favorite team is anyone playing the Dodgers. So, I'll pick against the Dodgers every day. I don't care if they're playing the Rockies. Let's go Rockies. So,
Jesse, do you hate the Dodgers? I think I know the answer to this question. Do you hate the Dodgers more than the Padres?
Oh, 100%.
I figured.
Yeah. Oh, the Padres is just annoying for the moment. They're good and they're doing their thing, and they're the flavor of the week right now. But they're going to go back to being where everyone else runs, fills up that stadium and going to be an afterthought in a couple of years. So
yeah, I mean, the Dodgers and Giants, there's nothing like it when they're both playing well. That rivalry, nothing match. I mean, the Yankees, Boston, Mets, Yankees, sure, they're really good, but Dodgers, Giants, when they're really good, there's nothing that beats it. It's really good. So yeah, right now, of course, we hate the Giants more than the Padres. Of course, they're just
that's 100%.
Yeah,
that's what I figured. It is. It's the West Coast equivalent of Yankees Red Sox. Like it is. But I know that the Padres they've been so irksome to a lot of people because they like it was like, where do you guys get off coming out here signing all these people?
I'm glad we all agree on this at least.
Listen, after 2022 and they beat the Mets asses, like I get it, but like I don't know, man. I can't get on board with the Padres. The only game I went to in person this year was a Mets Padres game. Just because of my schedule, like I couldn't get out to Dodger Stadium because I was working and all this stuff. And I went to one game down at Petco, and it is a great ballpark. It's a beautiful ballpark. It's a great place to watch a baseball game. But I was like, the Mets obliterated them. It was like it was like 10-2 or whatever, and it was just so great. But you got all these like Padres fans like trying to talk shit, and it's like, dude, your team is historically just as bad as the Mets, probably worse actually, and you're getting your asses handed to you right now. Your ballpark is emptying out. There's "Let's go Mets" chants in here. Don't get up and be like, "Where do you get off saying that?" Like, just shut up. And I'm I'm not an agitator. Like when I go to other places, like I realize like I'm not in my home stadium, but like, we're winning by 8. I'm going to,
Yeah. Something. Yeah. I had interactions with some fans on Twitter where they're like, well, we already lost. You don't have to do it. I'm like, I remember 2022. You guys literally called our front office asking for NLCS tickets just to laugh in our face. I'm like, you're going to expect the same level of pettiness now. So don't hide from it now.
Yeah, don't be the puffy peacock chest, and then when you have to own it. You got to wear it. I'll talk shit all day, but you got to wear it. I mean, I'm actually going to that game 6 because my wife does have a flaw, and she's a Dodgers fan, so I'm going with her and a bunch of her family. So
do you guys both live here in Southern California, or are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where I always go to games too. I'll go to San Francisco like once a year, maybe twice a year if things are going good. But I'm just always going to the games at Dodger Stadium.
Do you are you from like San Francisco or Northern California? Is that?
I've never lived in San Francisco a day in my life. Okay. I just have family up there. My dad was a Giants fan, so
fair enough.
He raised me right, Yeah. No, yeah. So yeah, I mean, and that's another thing too. Like it was just kind of funny. I've had people ask me things about San Francisco and the actual like whereabouts and where to stay. Don't ask me. I have no idea. When I go out there, I just stay with family. And for the first time, I booked a hotel. I took my dad out there for like a father-son trip like 2 years ago. And dude, I picked like the worst part of town to stay in. Like I literally thought I was gonna get killed. just going to my they were telling me like, do not leave your car out here. Spend the $40 and go to the parking garage because your shit will get stolen. So I don't know my way around the bay at all.
That's hilarious. I get it though. As a fan that's out here, of East Coast teams, like I try to pick spots where I'm like, how can I go see the Mets? Like last year, Mets played the Dodgers during the week. It was like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I went to all 3. I went up to the Bay Area, saw them play the Giants. I went out to Arizona and saw them play. So I try to find spots. But then this year it was just like, if those series are on the weekend, I usually work on the weekend. And so it's like for most people that's great. For me, it's the opposite. I'm like, I need them. Like everybody was hating on the game time tomorrow being a 1 p.m. local time. I'm like, give me 1 p.m. on a Monday, dude. Are you kidding me?
No, man, I hate it. I'm like, no, I don't like it at all. But whatever.
Well, John, we thank you so much for coming on, man. I know this is in between really, a bunch of time that you're running around and flying to other countries and stuff. So. We appreciate you coming on. Like I said, we're both hoping for rooting for the same thing to happen. I hope we're both right. But if anything, hopefully we'll have you back on next time playoff series happens. Or who knows, when we're both fighting over Juan Soto next year, maybe we can work something out.
Yeah, man. Look, I really appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you for rolling with my schedule. I know I was a little evasive. Like I could try to make it. I think I could do this time, but it was. Right. I just didn't want to. I really wanted to do it, but I didn't want to overcommit and then be like, I'm sorry, I can't do it. So right. Just getting back, this morning and everything, and but I do appreciate it. This was a ton of fun, and I'll come on anytime.
Thank you, man. Right, man. Yeah, seriously, it was a lot of fun and. Good luck to both teams, man.
Yeah, good luck.
Yes, and make sure to check if you want to get the full in-depth takes on the Mets. Make sure to hit up his podcast, Till Mets Do Us Part. It's on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcast. You guys usually go live on Wednesdays, right?
So we're live 5:30 Eastern, so 2:30 here on the West Coast every Wednesday. And we might switch it up every once in a while. Sometimes, there's weird, quirky day games. We don't want to run up against the Mets because the live part of the show. Yeah, like we have a lot of people like in our comments and things like that that interact with the show. And obviously they're all Mets fans. So like we're not going to compete with the game. So sometimes like, a game goes late. We'll just wait till it's over. Sometimes we've got, a guest on and we have to like accommodate, we might move to a different day of the week or something like that for them. But we have had some really good guests, a lot of former Mets and stuff on the show. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Make sure to check that out. Go in his comments, talk a little trash and, make him feel that benches cleared shine and trash talk. So, but John, thanks for coming on, man. It was nice hanging out.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Right. Thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform as well as YouTube. We're always there. Come hang out and say what's up. Make sure to follow us on your socials. TikTok, Bench is Cleared. Twitter, Bench is Cleared P, and Instagram, Bench is Cleared Podcast. Dave,
thank you to our guest, John. Thank you to our guest, John Saponaro. You can follow him at John Saponaro on Twitter. If you enjoyed that, maybe we'll talk to him again soon. If the Dodgers win, even if they lose, we'll see. But that was really fun. So we'll see how that goes. But thank you guys for listening, and follow us on all the platforms.
All of them. And we'll be back, I believe, on our regular days as well. Gonna see, because there might be some craziness happening, during the series. Who knows? So we'll be there with you through it the whole time. Make sure to follow us to know when, and we'll see you guys then. Next episode, baby.
See ya.